In this video, dreams will get true. We will build a dynamic, complete responsive webinar landing page using neumorphic styles and animations. Our landing page will be containing different sections, starting from the hero section, about me section, the form section, and the testimonial section. And for sure we will be having some partials, which are the footer and the navbar. The navbar will disappear when the screen is less than 600 pixels, leaving us with the hamburger menu. Totally responsive, neumorphic design, plus animations. Whenever you refresh, you will see your text flowing and give you the feeling of diving in the space. In addition to that, this landing page will be totally functional, meaning you can fill the form, you will get feedback. We will have validation and you won't be able to submit without filling the form, especially the required fields. But also, you won't be able to give anything as an email or username because we got our validations. After successfully filling the form and checking if there's no errors, our data will be saved in a local JSON file, a very simple database. The logic will impress you and we will get the error messages into the front end, leaving a feedback for the user. The application will be built upon Node.js, and I will be showing you the power of JavaScript and how you can leverage AJS, Express, and the file system package to give you the ultimate experience with JavaScript packages. In our styling, we'll be using mainly CSS, covering advanced concepts like root pseudo class, media queries to make the website responsive, keyframes for the animation, flexbox, and grid, allowing us to align the elements and the components as we want. And for sure, we'll be building even the functionality of the testimonial section, which will require some advanced JavaScript front-end logic, covering listeners, DOM manipulation, and events. Whenever the form is submitted, we will redirect him to the success page, where he's gonna get his nice message telling him that he is successfully registered. So I created a folder called webinar landing page. I opened VS Code in it, and now to initialize the project, we need first to open the terminal. I'm gonna do that by Ctrl+Shift+C. You can also click on the terminal here and click on new terminal to open a new terminal, and you initialize the project by typing npm in it. You'll be asked for some basic information, so just click enter to go for the default version. Description: this is a webinar Node.js webinar landing page. Entry point, I will call it app.js because I'm building a web app. You can go for index.js. I prefer app.js. Test command, we don't need it. Git repository, for now I'm not gonna connect it to any Git. Author, write your name there, and the rest is okay. Now if you check the directory, you will see that you got already this package.json. And now let's start by installing AJS. To do that, type npm install AJS. But you also need a package called body parser. You need Express, and you need Dast. Click enter and let's wait a bit to get it installed. Here we go. Our packages are installed. Now let's create our app.js, and we'll start by requiring Express. Const Express is equal to require Express. Then we require also the body parser. Then we put the Express method inside of a variable called app, and let's use this app and assign Express static public. What this really do is it serves static files from the public directory. So what that means is that we will have a public directory here where we got our index file inside this folder, and whenever you want to have JavaScript files or CSS files, you can put them here. So let's prepare this folder by adding CSS and then JavaScript. Not only that, in this public folder, after rendering the page that we got, which is AJS, in our case, let's create it outside. So in this public folder, the already rendered HTML, which is ready to show on the browser, is gonna be in the public folder. So if you check the packages that we've already installed, one of these was the EJS, which is the template engine, which will allow us to render .ajs files and transform them to HTML, which we could view. Now usually we need to set this template engine. To set it, you just type app.set, then you got the view engine is AJS, right? So we're setting the view engine to AJS, which is already this package that we've installed in our application. Now what we could do is let's just get anything. This is the power of Express, that you can handle requests and responses in a very easy manner. manner. So the get function allows you to give a directory as a first parameter, and the second parameter would be the function that you would apply on this directory. So in our case, on this directory, let's just render. So what we could do is response send, and then we send anything. Let's say some h1 tag containing hello world. Now to see this on screen, we need to run the application. Running the application is done by, clicking node, and then we call the app.js. So enable to us to see the results on screen, we need to listen. That's why we use the method listen, and then we give the port that we are going to listen on. In our case, let's just give 3001 because we are already using the 3000 port to show the end result. And then the same as get function, listen method allows us to pass two parameters, the port that we want to listen on, and then the function or the method that we want to apply. So in our case, let's just log to the console, server started at port 3001. And this method is going to be applied when listening is occurred successful. Now let's save, go to our terminal, node app.js, and as you see, server started at port 3001. That means, let me just copy this one. If we check the port 3001, and as you see, hello world is already there. Let's go. It's a good start, by the way. Now, to leverage the power of HTML, which is the view engine that we got, and we've already set the engine. So to do that, instead of sending anything to this directory, we can render, let's render index, right? Now the question is where this index should come from. That's the first question. And what's the index exactly? Yeah, what's the index here? And now you need to know first that when you are rendering with the view engine, you got usually a views folder. And in this views folder, you got your AJS files. So the AJS files are, let's assume AJS in our case. And here you can type your HTML, which you can render from here. So now let's just try to type anything here. For example, let's start by giving a title. This title would be Node.js webinar. And inside the body, let's just copy these sentences for now. Dive into Node.js online webinar for programmers. So now if we refresh our page after we rerun our server, and as you see, it's becoming painful because every single time we are refreshing something, we are changing something, we need to stop the server using Ctrl+C, as you see, and then rerun it again. To decrease the pain, there is a great tool for that called nodemon, which I'm gonna install now. So to install it, you just type npm I nodemon. So what nodemon does is basically to rerun the server automatically. So all we need to do now, nodemon app.js, and as you see, now if we change anything here, for example, online JS webinar, and then we save, as you see, the moment we save, it restarts automatically without us restarting that. And if we check here, JS webinar, I mean, you need to refresh for sure, but that's it, just like a click of refresh. So the last and only thing that we still need before we get started to build the interface of the website is one single line, which is using our body parser, which we required already there, which is gonna help us as a middleware to handle post data, right? And I will give the attribute extended to true. And as you see, it returns middleware that only parses encoded bodies and only looks at requests where the content type header matches the type option, right? Last but not least, we're going to require the FS from the name, it's file system. And this is gonna help us later when we are building the backend of the form that we got, like where we are going to save the files, right? So with that, the app.js is pretty done for now. Let's get started and build our interface. Now in AJS, let me teach you the power of AJS, because maybe you are asking like, why are we doing that? Couldn't we just make an index.html file with the usual script and then we get started to build our interface? That's right. But we are doing that to discover together the power of AJS. There is a power here. If you got like different pages of HTML, and these pages, you are repeating yourself, you are repeating the same head, the same elements, sometimes components in the body, and there is not so many way in the HTML itself to avoid repeating yourself in some cases. And here's the power of AJS. So what AJS allows us to do is to create something called partials. So inside the views, let's create a folder called partials, and the partials are a part of our HTML, which we could grab, let's assume the head, then we could call it head.js, then we'll paste it inside. Now let's say that we want to link our styles.css, and we are going to put it in the CSS file. Now you need to keep in mind that this file here, which is gonna be rendered from the app.js, as you see, after rendering it, it will be in the public. That means you want to grab the CSS from the public folder. So that's why I'm gonna add the styles.css file here and put some very simple stuff in it, which are first the colors that I've chosen. As you see, nothing special. These are variables in CSS, which are the primary color. So instead of giving the color every single time, then you got like some nice CSS using some globals. Then I got, as usual, my favorite neutralizer, margin 0, padding 0, box sizing is border. Let's check, data is there. We'll get to continue writing our code. Now let's start styling. So in the styles.css, I'm gonna start with our body first. So the body, I'm gonna align the text to the center. Be sure that the height of the body is 100 VH. The font family is already prepared for us, as you see here, primary font. So all we need to do is to leverage the var method, which allow us to use these global variables that we've defined. And we got primary font. Then the color of the text in the body, the general color. One more time, var method, and we got our primary color, which is this dark blue. Background color is gonna be our secondary color, which is this white and with a little bit of purple, very little bit of purple, not too much, as you see here. Then we got for sure some padding to the top, and this padding we are going to use it later to put the navbar above it, so it's basically equal to the height of the navbar. For now I'm gonna give it 50 pixels. If we check our code here, still fresh, as you see everything is in the middle, the colors are right. You can tell that the color scheme is really good, man. Our hero section is gonna look so stylish in 2-3 minutes. So I'm gonna call the class, the hero class, which is the main section. Wanna display flex. The flex direction should be column because titles are under each other. Justify the content to the center. So everything is justified to the center and also aligned to the center. So that means vertically and horizontally it's gonna be in the center, as you see. Maybe you're imagining, okay, this code is not doing a lot. It's better always to be sure that every single section is taking the right things that you need to. Then I'm gonna add some paddings, 1 rem. Position should be relative. The height is 60 VH. That means 60% of the height of the screen. Then the color of the, okay, wanna be sure that the overflow is hidden. Okay, now we got the before, so hero before. We got some empty content, right? Position is absolute. That means we are creating an element which is before the hero element, which is empty, has a content, empty content, and the position is absolute, which means it's gonna be anchored on the element which is above in the hierarchy, which has the position relative. That means this dude will be before this dude and it's anchored to it, so it's kind of above it. And that's the filter that we are creating, which will allow us to give the background image. Now let's just give it a top 0, left 0. The width is gonna be 100%, same for the height. Background image is a bit tricky here because if we just use the URL method, let's check now. So as you see, it's huge and it's just showing a part of the image. The image looks much better. Let's choose the size of the image. So background size is gonna be cover, so we are going to cover this whole thing with the image. Oh, it looks much better, man. And as you see, it's showing it from the top, so wanna position it, so background position, wanna position it to the center. So if something should be cropped, then from the edges, from the left, right, top. One more thing is that we don't see the texts here. The reason is the Z index is so high, so wanna decrease it to -1, so we are sure that this whole thing is under our text. Now let's refresh. Here we go, our text is visible now because it has a higher Z index. The last thing that we want to achieve is this image here is too sharp. The highlight is very high. For us to make these text more obvious, we want to be sure that we got a linear gradient before our background. I just pasted here the linear gradient and then comma, we got our URL. Now if we check it, it's gonna give us this kind of filter. And we forgot something, as you see here. We forgot to give the right color inside the hero section, so I'm gonna do that here. Color bar, we're going to give the secondary color, which is kind of white one. Here we go. Now we are not done yet. Want to give some font size. So the hero title gonna have the font size 2.5 rem. Although the hero subtitle and hero date is gonna have the font size 1.5 rem, and I'm gonna add some animations into it. This animation we'll be defining later, so that's why for now I'm gonna comment this line and get to it later. As you see, it looks so much better. Now let's check our bottom one more time. Here we go. It's empty. Wanna be sure that it has some text in it, so sign up now. Okay, it looks horrible. Our button looks horrible because it's a link. That's why it's blue. So let's style it. That's why we're styling now. We give it the class hero bottom. So we want to start by a margin top 1 rem, which is gonna make some space between the bottom and the text above it. Want to add some padding, 0.5 rem, 1 rem. So 0.5 top and bottom, 1 rem left and right. We don't need any border, so that's why we set the border to none. After that, the background color should be our highlight color. Save and check. It looks so much better, man. But for sure, we still need to change the color. One more time, var. We're going to use our secondary color. Font size is 1 rem. Text decoration is gonna remove this underline here. To do that, we just give it text decoration none. And one more time, just do not forget it. Later, I'm gonna add some animations, so I'm gonna add it and just comment it for now. We'll get to that. Okay, our bottom looks really good. Let's refresh. No underlines. But still, if we check our main one, first it's animated, as you see. It's moving in and out in a nice way. Let me zoom in. It looks really good. and when you hover it, it changes to blue. So we want to achieve that. To achieve that, type hero button, then 2 points hover. So on hovering, we want the background color to change to hover color. Refresh. Here we go. Amazing. Our hero section is done. We got some amazing progress right now. Looks good, and let's just check a bit. It's responsive. Whoa, man. That's the power of clean CSS. Be sure to grab some coffee and we'll continue together. The next thing that we are going to build is the navbar we are seeing here. This navbar is gonna be responsive, and as you see, it changed to a Hamburger Navbar. You can click on it and it will be taking you to the sections, to the different sections we got. So the first question that pops up, where to build it? Well, we're going to build it before the hero section, meaning here, right? Now, there is a question, a wise question. Since I've already explained what the partials are and we've already used it, so I will assume you've understood that. That's why I'm gonna use partial one more time, because if you think about it, this navbar, if we got different pages, then it's something it's gonna be repeating itself, same as the head. So everything which could repeat if we scale the application should be a partial. In React, it's called component. Here we call it partial using the EGS, which is the Express JavaScript template. Let's dig down to that. To create the partial inside the views, we create a partial. Let's call it navbar EGS, right? And we want to include it in our index.js. So I've just copied this line. Instead of head, we have navbar. So in this navbar, we're using the nav tag. Then I'm gonna create a div with the class hamburger with 3 different spans, which is I'm gonna explain in a second. Then we got an unordered list with the class navbar. Then we got our lists. In these lists, we got the links, the A tags, which are going to be anchored to the different IDs and sections. So in our case, let's anchor the first one to the hero section and give it the name of home. Then we got different ones. So I'm just gonna duplicate it. I duplicate it using Command D. So that's a shortcut that I've implemented in VS Code. If you are interested about shortcuts of VS Code, check this video where I explain my favorite shortcuts and how that helps me to speed up my coding. Then if we check the navbar that we got here, we have about and register. So about and register. So for now, I'm just gonna give these IDs directly. Even though we didn't pull these sections, let's just get it done. Let's check the results. Fresh. Here we go. So we got home. If we click at it, it will take us to the hero section. About, it will take us to text-section. And if we click on register, it will take us to the section with the ID form. And these sections are not pulled yet, but the home section is for sure pulled already. And this one, let's inspect it and see if we really gave it the right ID. As you see, the ID is already hero. So yeah, here we go. Now let's style our navbar. So I'm gonna start with the comment navbar style. So we differentiate between the different styles that we got in the styles.css. First, I'm gonna grab the class navbar, give it a width 100%. Background color is gonna be the primary color. Since we've used A tags, so I wanna be sure that since we've used an ordered list, we want to reset the list style type to none. We want to add some padding on the left and right. The overflow should be hidden. That's just in case if the navbar is so small, we don't want the words to get out of the section. Set the font size to 18 pixels. Position should be relative, and I will tell you in a second why. Because it's going to be the anchor of the other element, which is going to be absolute. Top 0, position should be fixed, and we want to be sure that the Z index is 2. Now, both of these are overwritten, so my fault. Let's just comment this one for now. Let's check. Okay, it's looking much better, but we still have so much to do. Now inside of this navbar, got the list items. Now here you could display it flex, make the display flex. I'm gonna go old school and just give the navbar. I'm just gonna give the list item float left. Refresh. Now they are stacked horizontally instead of vertically. What we still have to do is to style the A tags, which are inside the list items. So first, the display should be blocked. The color should be the secondary one. Refresh. Much better. We still want to align the text to the center, but also add some paddings. I'm gonna give it 14 pixels vertically and 16 pixels horizontally. That means left and right. And let's be sure that the text decoration is none. So we remove the default decoration of the A tags. Fresh. Much better, as you see. Now let's work on the hover a bit. So a great hover effect is to change the background of the list item we're hovering on. So all we need is to, let me copy this one. We don't need these styles. So on hover, we want to change the background color to the highlight color. Save, refresh. Here we go. It's looking much better. Okay, with that, we're done with the navbar. Now we still need to make our navbar responsive, because as you see, when it's on smaller screens, it's a mess up. I mean, it's not that bad, but for sure we want some hamburger menu. So let's build it together. Here we go. Hamburger menu. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the class hamburger, this one here, and think about it for a second. By default, we want this hamburger menu to be displayed as none, to be hidden. And then when we get get the smaller screens wanted to show up and want the normal navbar to hide. That means display should be none. This is in the usual case, big screens and medium screens. Let's just be sure that the cursor is pointer. That gives us this effect of the hand. I think it's great to have it even in the navbar. Let's check. Okay, we already have it in the navbar, as you see, and that's great. Want to add some padding, 10 pixels. Let's add some border radius, 50%. That will give us the circle shape, and background color. Let's give it the primary color, right? And this is exactly what we are achieving with these styles. This circular shape, and we give it the right color, basically. We're not gonna see it yet because it's displayed as none. Just continue. Now we got the hamburger icon. Go to hamburger, span. So the span in the hamburger, I'm gonna give it a display block. Background color, secondary color. Height is 2 pixels, width 25 pixels, margins 4 pixels, top and bottom, and automatic, left and right. Later, we're going to have some transition, all 0.3 seconds, in and out. Okay, so what we are doing with this code is we are grabbing these spans inside the hamburger class, and we are creating these dashes, basically. What you could do is to grab this icon just from the internet, just write hamburger icon, you can get it, download it, and paste it here. But yeah, let's be a bit creative and create it ourselves, and that's what I'm doing here. I just created this dash, gave it some colors, with height 2 pixels, the width is 25 pixels, and so on. Now we'll get to the first responsive element we got. So I'm gonna use for that the media query. So on maximum width 800 pixels, that means when the screens are less than 800 pixels, and we're talking about the width, we wanna change the styles of the navbar. Think about it, we wanna display the elements inside the navbar stacked vertically instead of horizontally. So flex direction is gonna be column. But not only that, I mean, if you think about it, before we click it, they are not there. After we click on the hamburger menu, they are appearing. So I wanna give them also display none, and I will show you that in a second. Okay, let's check it here. Okay, on a refresh. Okay, so as you see, when we are under 800, the navbar is disappearing. When it is disappearing, we want to show the hamburger now here. That means hamburger display blocked, and the position should be fixed because we want it to stick in the corner. So that's why the top should be 2 pixels, and then left, we're going to give some space there, 12 pixels, and let's be sure that the Z index is 4. Check now, refresh. As you see, it's here. Still for a reason not perfectly aligned, but we will fix that in a second. So let's just try, instead of top 2 pixels, to give it top -2. Okay, here's the error. Just forgot the P. It's type error. Crazy. Okay, that's our goal. It really made me rethink what I'm doing. So as you see, top 2 pixels, and on the left we have 12 pixels. Here we go. Done. Now let's cover the JavaScript together. If we check, our goal is when we click on it, it shows the navbar. One more time click, hides the navbar. So it toggles between hiding and showing the navbar when we are clicking on this hamburger menu. Let's achieve that. So obviously we want to link some script, JavaScript, and I prefer to link it always in the last thing in the body section, and I prefer to write the JavaScript in another file and not mix it with HTML. Just much prettier and cleaner. So to achieve that, I'm just gonna include it. So JavaScript navbar to JavaScript. And as I've said, this is gonna be rendered in the public. That means what we are doing is in the public, we need to create the JavaScript folder, and in the JavaScript folder, we've got navbar.javascript. So what we wanna do, we wanna grab our hamburger element. To do that, constant hamburger is equal to document.querySelector.hamburger. That's one. The second thing that we want to grab is the navbar, because we want to hide it and show it. So navbar document.querySelector, and the class is called navbar. And what we want to do is to add an event listener on the hamburger, because we want to listen and observe the click on this hamburger. So let's add it by calling the hamburger variable, and on it we want to add event listener. The type of the listener is going to be click, and when clicking on it, we want to call a function, and the function would be navbar class list toggle. I will explain in a second. Responsive. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm checking the class list and toggling responsive. So that means adding responsive and then removing it when clicking. Now all we need to do is to create a responsive class in the styles, and of course when the maximum width is 800 pixels. So let's style it .responsive, and what we are going to do is to display flex, and the padding is 0. Okay, so this is basically the class that we are going to add or remove from the class list of the navbar. As you see, we are going to remove the responsive class or add it from the navbar class list if we click on the hamburger. Now let's check what's happening. Need to refresh first, and to test the logic, I'm gonna log something to the console. Toggle responsive. Nice. Okay, so as you see, when clicking, now the class list of the navbar, let's check it out. Here's the navbar. When clicking, responsive is there. Click one more time, responsive is not there anymore. So focus here, the class. Okay, we got now navbar. When I click, it becomes responsive or it's removed. That means the logic is working, although we need to be sure that the navbar flex direction is column. Okay, that's not the case. Okay, so I just discovered it's not working because I've misspelled one more time the responsive word in the JavaScript. As you see, responsive. Now let's refresh. Responsive. Be sure that it's the same word. Responsive. Responsive. Refresh. As you see, if we just display it as flex, we do it ourselves, it's already there. So we got some problem in this code, and it's good that we are having the problem together so we can solve it. As you see, if we refresh, display is none. Now if we click, the display should be flex, and it's not happening. We check the console, we got no problem. Now what we could do is, for testing, we look out the navbar class list. Now on click, we see that we got just one class, which is navbar. Let's click one more time, and then we got two of these, navbar and responsive. So the class is added, although for a reason the CSS is not changing. So let's check our CSS one more time. Be patient. And here we go. There is space between the navbar and the responsive. Refresh. Here we go. Now we got it done. Now hovering is working, everything is working. Still, it's not disappearing when clicking on any of the options in the navbar. If we check our goal, when we click on one of these, and if we check the goal, when we click on about, the navbar should disappear again. And then we still have these three dashes here that we can click on. So we want to achieve this. So think about it. What are we going to do? We need to add listeners on these three listen items, and whenever we click on it, we want to toggle this responsive class one more time on the navbar. That means let's grab the navbar items, and these could be 4, 5, 6 or much more. In our case, these are 3, so we're going to grab them using the query selector all navbar.align. So the list item in the navbar class, and this is gonna be an array, so we wanna loop into this array and add the listeners. To achieve this, we type navbar items. Now for each item from these list items, we wanna add the listener, and it's a click listener. When clicking, we wanna apply the same logic here. But instead of toggling, so when clicking, we wanna apply this function, and as above, we wanna remove, instead of toggling, we wanna remove the responsive class. Here we go. Let's save, refresh, click on the hamburger, the navbar shows, we click on home, it disappears. Great, right? Now, last but not least, we wanna be sure, because sometimes for some reasons, you will get some errors just by keeping just this code. That's why we wanna be sure that the DOM content is loaded before you apply this code. So to do that, on the document object, let's add an event listener, and it's DOM content loaded, right? Then we got the event here, event, and then we apply this logic we got. So grab the logic. Now we are not facing any problems with or without waiting for the content to be loaded, but in some cases you will face some problems, especially when you scale the program. So let's just do it right. The second part of the video is done. Navbar is there. Let's be thankful for a second and get to the next part. So the second section we got here is this text box, and it's pretty easy. So straightforward to the point. I will grab this text and just paste it, and I will explain it in a second. Nothing difficult here, like it's just basic writings with basic HTML. So let's refresh. We'll design it in a second. Let me explain the HTML. So we got the section. Inside it we got a div with a class text box. Then you got h2, which is the main title, this dude here. And then we got paragraph, and then h2, and then an unordered list UL, which is showing these guys: in-depth knowledge, expert guidance, interactive learning, network, resource. So we are listing things. Now let's style it. Let's style it to look like this one here. I prefer always to write the style of all the sections, and then after that write some media queries. It just helps me to organize my styles.css file. So that's why what I will do is just to add a comment and be sure that I'm adding here text section styles. Okay. So the first thing that we need here is we'll look at the HTML. Let's start giving the main section here some style. So I want to grab it. It's a section having the ID text dash section. I want to be sure that everything aligned in the center. My favorite way to do that is basically display flex, because it will ensure display flex, and then we want to be sure that everything is aligned to the center. Align items to the center. Let's check. We'll not see a lot of things, but this will just ensure that it's centered. And in the future, if we add any element into this section, let's say we add some element here, any kind of element in the future, we want to always think about the scalability, right? So if we add any element, refresh, you see like it's added here, but what we want to do is to be added under it. That's why I want the flex direction to be column. Now if we save, you see, here we go. That's my favorite way basically to align things to the center. You got so many different ways and you can go minimal, but what I do always to think about the scalability of the website. So if I have two options, I go for the bigger option. option usually. You can go minimal, as I've said, but it requires more expertise to go minimal. So instead of using the flex direction to use just like align text, you could, because of specificity and because of another things, something could go wrong if you add something to the website in the future. So that's why go the secure path. Then what we want to do is justify the content and we want a space to be in between, want some gap. Till now, all of these will not add so many things to the style, but this line here is gonna make some difference. So want 40 pixels vertically and want 10% horizontal. Let's check what this line do. Whoa, it looks much better, man. So now we still got something to do. Let me just for now be sure that the flex wrap is wrap. Okay, that's it. Now inside this section, let's look at the index.html. Inside the text section, now we got the div which has a class text box. Let's grab it. So div.text box, and here's the real thing that we need. So display, one more time, I love flex boxes. So display flex, I want the flex direction. Before I do that, let me just show you what's happening. Now everything is displayed as flex. That's why it's horizontal. I want to use flex direction, column, save. Let's check. Nice. Now we want some gaps. So everything looks much better. 20 pixels will do the work. Refresh. Whoa, nice, man. Nice. What we could do is in between these list items of the UL, we can add some margin. So to do that, let me copy this dude. This helps us for the specificity, UL li. So you can actually write directly UL li without this one. But if you got another unordered list on the website, which we don't have now, but in the future you could have something else, then you add it, then you are amazed, like what's happening actually, like it's getting some styles from nowhere, I'm not sure where, especially if you read the code after a while. That's why you need always to try to be as specific as possible. That's why I'm specific here. So we grab the div that has the class text box, and inside it we will search for UL, and when we find it, we grab every single list item in it and we add margin bottom 10 pixels. Save, check. Oof, it looks much better. Now last but not least, what we could do is, let me check. Now as you see, I've already prepared in the HTML. If we check the list, like the first two words of the list item are inside a B tag, which is showing us this bold font. But if we check our destination, the goal, we want to make it more colorful. So let's add this color. To do that, I'm gonna grab the same line here, paste. Instead of margin bottom, we wanna add color. The color would be, for now, I'm gonna go for highlight color. But we wanna be sure that we are grabbing just the B. So everything in the B tag. Let's refresh. Nice. Now, what I don't like is the color itself. It doesn't really show the contrast, because the goal of this color here is to shed light on these words, because these are the titles. This is the most important part of this whole list item. That's why I want to give it a color which is showing the contrast. That's why we could choose a better color. This color is not really doing the work, because the background is so near to this color. It's just like a lighter version of this color, which is purple. So I would go with another color, to be honest here. Let me go with the hover color. Let's check it. That's much better for me, man. Nice. I would just go with a very slight larger font size. To do that, I will grab the toolkit and just check. Okay, nice. So I wanna check here in the styles which font size we got. Font size. You can search for it even. So font size. Let me grab this one, font size. So obviously the only font size that I've added is the general one. Let me check it, font size. We didn't even give a font size, generally speaking. So let's do it ourselves. Give it 18 pixels just to see what's happening. 1.2. So rem will help us to make everything responsive. Let's go just 1.3. Nice, man. I think this does the work for us already. Nice. Still not convincing the color. I will change it one more time, but that's nice because I'm doing that interactively with you. I will use the primary color, and man, it will look much better with the primary color. Look at it. It's much better. We are still shedding light on it, so why not? Okay, we are done with this section. You see, it's really simple, straightforward, to the point. I've changed the styles a bit because it's much better like that, to be honest. Now let's get to the spices of this tutorial, which is this form. So let's start building it first. We'll be building the front end and the back end of it. So let's start with the front end. First, the interface and the HTML of it. Now, instead of text, the type will also be email. Email is the placeholder and it's also required. Let's save and check what's really happening. Okay, nice. Let's check the main one. And then last but not least, we got also the company and the expertise. And as you see, first name, last name are in front of each other. So you can imagine, like when we start now styling, if you already know your goal is to put the first name and the last name beside each other, that means let's let's now structure it in a way that makes everything easier for us and put it in a div. So then this whole thing is in a div. This is div on itself, the input field, and then we got another div having two fields. That means if we now flex the whole thing, it will be looking good and exactly as we want to. So what I would do here is just to copy the div that we've already made, but instead of name, we got the company. We got also here the company, and then last but not least, we got our expertise, and the same here. So yeah, that's it. Let's keep everything required, and if we check, we still have the submit button, and that's the last thing that we want to do. We got different ways how to do it. I'm gonna use a button, and the type of this button will be submit. Save and write submit in it. Now let's check what we already got. Now this is how it looks like. It's really funny. Let's style it, and then we get to the point. Oh, as you see, I've made a mistake here. The button should be out of this div. Nice. So we got the first name, last name, username, email, then we got this div containing the company and expertise and the submit. Let's style it. One more time, let's add a comment. Keep it clean. The cleaner you are, the easier it is in the future to scale the application. That's why I'm adding a comment here, and I will call it the form section. Nice. So I want to grab the form because that's the part which is not styled. If you look here, everything else is styled, the background, everything else is styled. That's the power of clean code because we've used that from the hero section. See the power of it? Now all we need to do is to grab this form and style it. So I'm grabbing the form. In our case, we just have one form in the whole website. So why not doing that? But we could also be specific and grab this one. So we got in the hero content, we got the form. This is more specific. So if we got another form in the future, we'll not be confused with the styles. Nice. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a width 500 pixels. And I wanna be sure that the background color is gonna be the secondary color, which is white. Let's refresh. Nice, getting better. This is our goal. Let's reverse engineer it. That's really good practice. Even when you see something and you just like reverse engineer what's happening and build it yourself, you will need that in your front-end career for sure. Then we got a height of 2 pixels. Oops, that's wrong. So we want to add some padding. Let's just focus on what we are building now. We got some padding and I give it 30 pixels. Border radius to make it round, 15 pixels. Let's check what we got now. Nice, it's getting better, man. Let's add some shadows. So 0, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and then I would choose the color black. This is a black color, RGB. The minimum width of the form, this is like for the responsiveness, will be 25 pixels, 25%. And last but not least, the transition will be all 0.3 seconds and it will be ease. This is the animation. Fresh. It's looking better. Now inside the form, we got our H2. So inside the form, we got our H2 and we want to give it the color of our primary color. Save. And what I've done is I've grabbed this one and gave it the right color. Let's refresh. Nice. Now let's style this input fields. So some spaces. So, okay, so I'm grabbing the input. The width should be 100%. That's one. Padding, 20 pixels will do the work. I want to add some margins to the bottom, 10 pixels. The border is none. This will remove this weird border that we are seeing. The border radius is 10 pixels. This will give us this roundy shaped border, a bit roundy, not so edged and sharp. And the font size will be 16 pixels. Background color, let's just give it a pure white color. Well, let's always use the colors that we already defined. So the secondary color will do the work. Some box shadows for sure. I'm just gonna paste it. Box shadows. You wanna try out a bit with the box shadow. I'm not gonna do that. And for sure, the transition all should be 0.3 and ease. So this will add this animation a bit. Let's save, check what we already have. Man, it's looking so much better. So much better, you can see, right? Now what we wanna do is, when we focus on the input, we want to add some shadows that give us an amazing interactiveness. So input on focus, the box shadow should be in set. Then I will add like 0 pixels, 2 pixels, 4 pixels, and then the color of the shadow would be the hover color. This blue one. Save, check. Wow, it's much better, man. Yeah. Refresh. You can see the difference. You can see the shadows, right? Now let's design this bottom because it looks really weird. So one more time the bottom. I'm just gonna call it by its element name and let's see what will happen. So that means I'm here grabbing all the bottoms on the website. I wanna give them 100 pixels. Width padding should be 10 pixels. Border, no borders, and the radius of the border would be 10 pixels. So a bit roundy, not so sharp. The background would be the primary color. Nice. And the color, since we got the primary color which is dark dark, we need something here white to show the text. The font size, I will stick with 16 pixels. Want to be sure that the cursor is pointer. So we got our this hand. When you point on the bottom, you change from this normal cursor or the selector you are seeing now here to a hand. So let's check. You see, we got the hand now, which is this hand. That's really nice. And last but not least, as always, shadows makes everything nice. So 10 pixels, then we got 20 pixels, and for sure like this black color here. Okay, I'm not adding this black color as a global because we can do it, but let's just keep it like that for now because it's gonna change a lot depending on the element that we are using. So it's nice to keep the flexibility here a bit. So as you see here, we got 0.1, here we got 0.2, which is a little bit with more or less opacity. Okay, now when we are on the column, let's check here the result that we really need. As you see, when we are hovering, the style is changing. So let's achieve that by pulling the bottom. And then when we hover on it, it is simple and easy. All we need to do is that the background should change from primary to highlight color. Nice. Second, I'm gonna change the box shadow a bit, copy paste. So I'm gonna make the shadow a bit bigger. And instead of 20 pixels, let's go with 30 pixels. Nice. Let's save and check. Now when we hover on it, wow, it looks so much better, man. Now last but not least, if you check here, first name and last name are kind of in front of each other, are beside each other. And yeah, I think in the input, I forgot the background color. Okay, let's check background here instead of background color. Okay, something went wrong. Okay, just to make the contrast a bit, let me do it instead of the secondary color. That's the error. Instead of the secondary color, let me just give it a pure white color here. Let's check. It's much better, man. Much better. Now the first name and the last name should be beside each other, and we already prepared our HTML to it. As you see here, nice and clean. What I would do, since we are doing the same thing here, I would just add a class called dflex, so that means display flex, and I will add it like as a global thing, and I will inject it even here. So the class would be even here display flex, because if we check, our goal is the first name, last name are flexed beside each other. The company and the expertise are also flexed beside each other. And let's now save, and we grab this class, which is gonna be global. So I'm gonna put it up here maybe. Okay, so this is gonna be a tool. Like this class is gonna be a tool. And if you know Bootstrap, you will know that that's something common in Bootstrap. You got already some classes which has some styles, and you kind of think in another way because you got already styles which are ready, and all you need to do is to choose where to inject these classes. So instead of grabbing something and styling it, what you do is you got already the styles like this one. So this class just flex items. Now you can grab this class and give it to any element that you want to display as flex, and that's sometimes a good tool to use. As you see, nice and clean. Now last but not least, I can tell that these are in front of each other. So what I want to do is add a margin bottom 20 pixels. 20 is so much, I will add 10. Save and see. Nice, man. That looks pretty nice. Nice, man. So now we got our interface of the form done. Now let's go to the backend. And see what we will have to do. Now if you submit, you will see you need to fill something here, and this is the power of the required attribute. These are required, and as you see here, because the type is email, you need to have an @ and then you need to have .com or something, or .c, and now this one is accepted. Company to give something, expertise, nice. And then we are submitting to this page, but this page is still empty. Okay, this is what we got to now. Now first we want to style this submit. Okay, so when we are directed to this submit, we want to have something there, and that's why what I would do is in the views, I will create a success.egs, right? And this would be like that. So instead of the head, I will just copy this line because this will include the same head. And this is the power of EGS. You see, we are not repeating ourselves. We've wrote already the head partial here. All we need to do is to bring it inside. The same with the navbar. So even the navbar, let's add it here somewhere in the body. Nice and clean. Now we got the head, we got the navbar. What do we still need to have? Let me add a hero section. And here's the power of scale, right? So you remember this section, right? This is the third time we are using the same section because it looks really good, man. So why not? Instead of building it again and again, we've already built it in a way that we can use it again with ease. Okay, so all we have here, let's just copy paste it from here. So copy, okay, paste. Nice. So we got the hero title. Instead of to dive into Node.js, let's write something like you are registered, right? And inside of online webinar for programmers, users. Let's go for see you in the webinar. Nice. And then instead of sign up now, I will add something like back to home page. Okay, so back to home does the work. And instead of form, I will add /hero. Okay, so let's check the directory /submit. And as you see, cannot get /submit because we didn't define that in the app.js. To do it, we type app.post since it's a post request. And when the directory is submit, we want to apply this arrow function, the same as the get request here. And what we want to do, instead of rendering the index, we want to render, so response.render, we want to render the success because we called the EJS page success, as you see here. Save, check. Here we go. It looks really good, man. And if we click at back to home, nice. Now this interface is done. Now let's build the logic behind it. Think about it, what we want to do. We got different cases. So these different cases are, does this username exist already? Does the email exist already? And so on. The question is, where does it exist? So I want to start by adding a JSON file. I will call it output, or I will call it users.json. That's not a common practice. Usually you connect the application to a database and you create the database. But for here, it's really simple, man. So why not just creating a JSON file and saving our simple data of the user that he's signing to watch the webinar? We'll save it in this users.json file. So to achieve that, we wanna grab everything that is coming from the form. So to do that, I'm gonna create a constant. I'm gonna create a variable, new data, right? And it will be request.body. So that means we are grabbing the request body and putting it in this variable. That's first. Second, we wanna open the users.json. So we wanna read the file. To read the file, I'm gonna use fs. So let's first define the fs, which is the file system. All we need to do without installing anything, since it's already installed, it's already built in the Node.js. All we need to do is require the path. This is the path library. This is require fs. Now, after requiring the fs library, we want to read file. The file would be, in our case, users.json. Okay, and then we get back an error and data. Okay, here we write the logic inside. So if we got an error and the error code is equal to this code, the string, we want to return fs.write file. That means if the file doesn't exist, then we want to create it, users.json. We create it by just basically writing in it. When you write in it, it's automatically created. So no end, if you Google it, let's just Google it and show you what that is. As you see, or error, no entity. That means a specific file or directory does not exist in the file system. Point. So it's an error code. If the error code is this one, meaning that we don't have the user.json, we didn't find the user.json here, what we want to do is we want to write into this user.json, meaning by writing in it, it's automatically created even. Okay, also what we want to do is use the json.strongify method. We want to pass in the new data, which is containing the information that the user has filled in the form, and for sure the null and the two. And I've explained that already in the last video, the calculator video. This two is basically the spaces that allows us to read the JSON in a better way. So it allows the JSON file to contain two spaces, allowing it to be more readable. Nothing hard. Now the error, in the case of the error, what we want to do is check if the error is there existing, want to log it to the console. So log error, right? Else, if we don't have an error, that means everything is successfully done. That means we render our success. I've just realized that I've wrote this logic in the wrong handler. So let's write it here instead, because we want to do that when we redirect to submit. Now, as you see, there is an error here, which is like the 3 equals instead of 1. Nice. So till now, we're doing the following. We're reading the file, okay? When reading the file, if we got an error and the error code is no end, which stands for no entity, meaning that our users.json doesn't exist, what we want to do is want to return fs.write file. That means we want to create this file and write into it. And while writing, we want to be sure that it's readable. That's why we're using this dude here. Last but not least, we're handling the error if we got any. And if not, then we are rendering the success page from the views. Is it the end? No. What if we got an error, but it's not this error? Meaning, else if we got an error, generally speaking, any error other than this one, what we want to do is log this error to the console. Straightforward. So log error. Okay. Now else, if this user.json already exists, what we want to do is want to grab the old data which is inside, right? So old data is equal to json.parse. We want to parse the data inside the JSON users.json, right? We want to parse the data. After that, we create a variable which is really checking if the user really exists or not. To do that, in the old data variable, which is data that we already have, we want to check if the user we got, and especially the username of it, is equal to the new data.username. username. Let's just use the right brackets. Okay, so what this is, or what this line does, we are basically returning a value, a Boolean value, true or false. So this function, the sum function, will return a true or false value, depending on this line we got here, which is in our case, grabbing the old user's JSON, checking this username, at the same time, grabbing the new data that we got now, form that we filled, and we're checking the username. So that means basically, if the username already exists, which we are trying to give here, if it already exists, that means it's true. So user exists will be true. Now we want to use this variable to create the logic, which is if the user exists, we want to do something, right? So we want to respond rendering the index, but when we are rendering the index, we want to pass in an object of errors. This object would be username, which means user exists. So if the user exists is true, we are going to return username already exists, else we return null. Nice. Okay, what if the username doesn't exist? Let's think about the logic. Then we want to check the email, because we want our data of the users to be unique, especially the email and the username. So if the email is already in our database, we want to give an error, email already exists. And if the username already exists, we want to give the same error, but with username doesn't exist. The rest could be the same. So he could have the same name in a way. Why not? We don't want to stop it now because we are building a minimal application and we don't really care if two guys have the same name, but we care that the different guys should have different usernames and different emails. It makes even more sense to just remove the username field, but I think if we want to scale the application and build something above it, it's nice to have a username. It shouldn't be really there for just like a landing page. But since we've made the efforts and we've built already the input of the username, let's go for it. Be sure that it's unique and the email should be unique too. So if you are trying to sign up for the webinar with the same email, you will get an error, even if you are trying to use a username which already exists. So we've built the logic of the username. Now let's just be sure that we are building even another variable called email, constant email exists. And guess how to do it? It's the same, my friend. So you can just copy this logic here. Okay, so instead of username, we'll be checking the email. Nice and smooth. Now what we want to do is, if the user exists or the email exists, so what we want to do is to render the index and pass this object of errors. But in this object of errors, let's also pass the email error. So the key is error, and then we want to check if the email exists. If it exists, we want to paste, basically it's the same logic just for email. So instead of username, the string we are returning will be email already exists, and if it's false, that means the email doesn't exist, we return a null. Nice. Okay, so this is if the user exists or the email exists. Else the user doesn't exist and the email doesn't exist. What we want to do is the old data is equal is to push the new data, so to push the new user inside our users.json, meaning old data dot push the new data. So we just grab the old data, this users.json, and we push the new user. So pushing the new user means something similar to this. As I've said, for sure these should be another name. I will not do it for now, just showing you what will happen. But for sure what we are doing with this line is just putting it in the old data variable, which is this one. We still need to write the logic, which is fs write file, then users.json, json.stringify, which will allow us to make the JSON look better, readable, and allows it to put two spaces in every single new line. Else we got the error. What we want to do if we have this error, so if error, then we want to throw this error, and we want to response render the success page that we have already built. Otherwise, let's read this logic one more time. So if the user exists or the email exists, what we want to do is we want to stay in the index. So we don't want to render the new page. What we want to do is render the same page, but we want to pass this object of errors, meaning username already exists or email already exists. Else, so with else we mean the other case. The other case is when the user doesn't exist and the email doesn't exist, because this is Boolean logic. I've already explained the Boolean logic in a video. If you don't understand it yet, check this video. It will help you to understand the Boolean logic. So the negation of this condition here, which is user exists and email exists, is first user doesn't exist, the or becomes an and the email exists becomes email doesn't exist, meaning the else here is applied when the user doesn't exist and the email doesn't exist. So when the user doesn't exist and the email doesn't exist, meaning we don't have any user with the same email and username, then what we want to do is we grab our old data variable, we push the new data into it, and now we write this whole thing to the user's file. That's what we've done with these couple of lines. And while writing into this file, if we got any error, we throw the error, we log it to the console. If not, we render the success. Let's save, check it, and for the sake of testing, I will use the same username that we got here, Jataha, right? So we got the same username. That means if I submit, as you see, man, the same page is rendered, although we are already on the submit page and nothing is added. And if we check here, we got our error. Nice. It seems that we got so many errors, man. We'll get to that. Okay, so now what if we use a new username called AdamTaha2 and Jad, let's go for Adam. Same here, let's go for something like AdamTaha@g.com. Top G is the company and he is JavaScript expert. Let's be sure that the email is not repeated, the username is not repeated. Now if we submit, nice, man. And if we check here, it's added. That's nice. But still, in the case where it's working, it's real nice. Everything is nice, but we want to give some feedback. Here's the UX design. When you are building an application, you want to be sure to give feedback if something goes wrong. So in the case where something goes wrong, like now, let's now try to submit. We want to give some feedback because we are rendering the page, but there is no feedback, nothing red, nothing is alerting, telling us that the username is already exists. But we got the error from the backend already. So what we want to do is in the index page, let's open it. In the views, we got the index, right? So where's the form? Let's just go to the form section. Here we go, the form section. So what we want to do is after the username, we want to add some JavaScript using these tags. These special tags, as you saw it here, it allows us to write JavaScript inside of it. And that's what we need here in our case. So I want to write an if statement. So if type of the error is not equal to undefined and the error.username exists. So just to let you know, the error that we are talking about here is the error that we are passing into this object. Let me check it, this object here. So the object already exists. What we want to do is, or what we are doing here is to checking it. So checking first if it's not undefined and it's an error in the username. So what we are checking is, do we have in this object an element called username? So if we have this element, that means it exists. It's true, truthy value. But if we have it, but it's null, it will be falsy value. So the falsy value, this will be false. But in this case here, what we are looking for is if our type error is not undefined, meaning it's something defined. At the same time, if it's not null, if it's not false, then we apply the logic, which is we got our P paragraph. Let's add a class. The class would be error.message, which we want to also style a bit, make it red. And then one more time, we need these tags, which allows us to write JavaScript inside the HTML. That's really helpful, man. And we want to pass in the username. So if the username already exists, this would be the value, meaning we're checking here, this value is not undefined, right? So the first one is true. Second one, if the error.message exists, this one is truth, it exists. Then we are pasting that into the interface. We're showing that in the interface under the input of username. So this means we'll see that, right? But what we still want to do is to close the if, because we're writing the logic here. Look at it. Meaning, let's copy this one and close the bracket. Let's also be sure that we've opened it already. So just to make it clear, let me rewrite it in a better way. So what's happening is, we've got an if, right? And then if this happens, then we are going to show this P, right? So this is what we are doing really. So passing an HTML element inside this if clause. Nice. Now the same thing, we're going to do it for the email. So let's just copy paste and define instead of username, we want the email. Email. Nice and smooth. What's happening there? Done. Email. Let's go. Nice, man. Let's save. Let's check now. Let's try to give the same username that we got here. Okay, let's try AdamTaha02. We can change it. One of the disadvantages of the JSON file, if you mess up with it here, you are deleting the data. So you want to be sure not to mess up with it. But what I've done is just remove the two. Why not Adam.taha? And let's go JavaScript expert, and let's go for top G as a company. First name Adam, last name Taha. Let's submit. Okay, there's something that's wrong. Okay, we just forgot this percent here, as you see. Nice. I want to be sure the percentages are there already. Let's save and check now. Continue. Nice. So as you see, we got the error here, but it's just not styled. Look at it. It's not styled. So we want to style it. We want to make it red. Let's go to the styles. So yeah, let's do it under the form section directly. So errors, styling. So all we need to do is to grab the class error-message, right? And we want to give it the color, font color should be var highlight color, right? Then the font weight, let's make it bold. Let's save, refresh, continue. Nice. Username already exists, email already exists. What we could do is to just make a bit of margin. I think margin bottom, let's go for 10 pixels, save it. Okay, nice, man. I like it. Email already exists, username already exists. With that, the logic is done basically. And let's do one more round to check everything. Okay, so to do that, what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna delete user.json. Let's go back to the hero section, save. Okay, now we don't have any JSON file. That's why I'm gonna pass in this information. We submit, you are registered. See you in the webinar. Now let's check the data, the users.json. We got our data here. Nice. That's the first case. The second case, we got already our user.json, right? So if we get our, go back to home, I'm gonna now pass the same dude, Adam.taha. I'm gonna give an another email, but the username, as you see, is gonna be the same. It's repeated. Let's see if our logic accepts that. Top G JavaScript expert, and as you see, username already exists. Okay, nice. But the email, they didn't tell us anything about it. Nice. That's what we want. What if we got another username, but I will use the same email. Let me just copy it from here. Paste company expert. Now, as you see, the email already exists. Okay, this is the second case. Then we got one more case, which is, let me just pass another username and pass another email. So this should be a new user. It has the same name, but it's another user because he has another email, has another username. Let's submit. Oh, just forget what to render. So what we want to render here is the success. Save. Okay, let me just repeat it very quickly. I'm gonna delete this one. So Adam Taha username should be Adam Taha 2, and the Gmail Adam Taha 2, company Top G JavaScript expert. Let's go, and if we check our data, nice and smooth. Now we got this part done. That's a huge work. That's so much improvement, man. And what we still have, if we look at the destination, we still have the testimonial section and our small footer. Let me do the footer very quickly, then we get to the testimonial section. So to do the footer, I'm gonna directly create a new partial. I'm gonna call it footer.egs, right? And all we need is a footer, right? A P, and I will give it a class footer. What I want to do is copyright, then and copy. This will give us this nice C. Then I'm gonna say 2023 event landing page. Let's say Node.js webinar landing page. Save. Okay, so we want now to include it into the index.js. We do that for the script under the form section. One more time, when including, we want to use these, right? And all we need to do is to include, what do we want to include? Partials-footer.egs, the same line that we got here. Okay, let's check now. Okay, something went wrong again. Yeah, it's the percentage. Nice and smooth. Now we want to design the footer. To design the footer, under the arrow styling, when I grab the footer, all we need to do is some margin on the top. 20 pixels should do the work. The background color should be the primary color. Then the color itself of the font should be our secondary color, the light one. And let's be sure that the text is aligned to the center. Padding 10 pixels should do the work. Last but not least, the width of the footer should be 100%. Save, check it, nice and smooth, man. Now still need to do one thing, which is to include the footer even in the success page. Let's check the success page. Let's include it even. Save. So now if we go for /submit, let me check. Yeah, that shouldn't work. It works just like if we really pass into the form, which is really smart. So now let's try with a new username one more time and new email, and let's go for JavaScript expert. Nice, here we go. And then we got our footer, we got our home here. Let's go for home. We click on about, takes us to this text. We click on register, it takes us to the form. All we still need to do is the testimonial section. So now we're going to build this testimonial section. As you see, got some shadows, and when we click the arrow, switch between these testimonials. Here is our actual website now. So let's get started. We want the styles be opened, and we want the index.js. Let's get started. So let me close this section. Then we'll get started by adding a new section with the ID testimonial section. Here we go. So the first thing we got is the bottom. This bottom is gonna have an ID arrow left. So we got the left arrow. I will give it a class arrow, and here's how to create arrow in HTML. Then we got a div, which I'm gonna give an ID testimonial cards container. This is gonna be the container which is gonna be containing the cards of the testimonial cards. Then we got another button. I will copy this line, which will be arrow right, and for sure we want to have GT. Okay, let's check what we got till now. As you see, we got this arrow and this arrow. Nice. And these are already designed, styled. And this comes from the bottom style, which we got here. This is a general style. Okay. Now inside the testimonial cards, if we look at the destination, got some different testimonial cards. That's why I'm gonna create a div called testimonial card, which is gonna be containing an image with class user image. I will add the source in a second and the alternative. Then we got h3, which is gonna be having the class user-name. Then we got the username. Okay, so let me go for a hard-coded name for now, Alex Berg. And then we got a paragraph tag with the class testimonial text. I'm gonna write something like this: event has changed my life. Nice. Now for the sake of the picture source, I'm gonna use an open source API, which really doesn't even need an API key. So let me paste the link here. As you see, we got, it's called randomuser.me. Then you choose the number of the picture that you want to. You can choose 2. Let me check 102. So there is no 102. I think the maximum is 100. Okay, so let me check 99. Nice. So we got 99 images of different men, and if you write woman, you will get different women. So it's an open API. You don't even need an access key, and I'm gonna use it. So let's go for it. So as you see, we got the testimonial cards. We got an image. I'm gonna write here user image. That's it. And maybe it's something like testimonial. That's important for the SEO. That's why I'm adding that testimonial. Okay, that's it. Let's check what we got. As you see, we got the picture, the name, and this event has changed my life. Now for the sake of speed, what I will do now is a couple of these are hard-coded. I wrote different testimonials and gave different names and even chose different pictures. So I'm just gonna paste it here inside, which you can even do by grabbing the code from my GitHub. Here we go. So I basically added 5 different testimonial cards with the same logic. Nothing special, just different numbers of images of men and women from this open API that I've shown you. And then I've just changed a bit the messages and the testimonials and the name of the user. Let's save. Let's check now. As you see, we got Alex Berg with his photo. This event has changed my life. Node.js is sweeter than I thought, and so on. Now, the whole thing still looks weird. And now we got to the butter of our video, which is adding the styles of the testimonial. As usual, before the footer, let me put it before the footer, we got the styles of the testimonial section. So we'll start by grabbing the testimonial section. So first we want to display everything as flex, but for sure we want to flex them horizontally. That's why it's enough to just flex the items. Oof. It still looks a bit weird, but we'll get to that in a second. So the 3 different items that we got here, as you see, we got this div, then the container, like testimonial cards container, and we got the right arrow, and these are flexed horizontally. Nice. And now let's just align items to the center, but also justify content to the center. Let's be sure that everything which is overflowing our container is gonna be hidden. The width should be 100%. The background of the whole section would be the secondary color, which is the white one. Then we want to be sure that the padding 50 pixels vertically and 0 horizontally. Now let's check. Nice. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So now we want to grab the testimonial cards container. So this one in the middle, and we want to give it some good styles. To do that, testimonial cards container. Then we want to be sure that display is grid. Now you could use flexbox, but I'm gonna use grid. I'm gonna be sure that the grid template columns is gonna be 3 different fractions. So we use the repeat method 3 and 1 of r. So repeat the 1 of r, which is the 1 fraction 3 times. Let's check now. And as you see, we got now like 3 of them, and then the 2, which is what we just have written, 1, 2, and 3. Then we got the second row automatically. Now what we want to do is overflow should be hidden. That's really important for the responsiveness. Let's justify content. Let's justify the items to the center and add a padding 20 pixels vertically and 0 horizontally. Nice. Okay, so now what I wanted to do is to hide the second row, but I'm gonna do it in an interesting way. Why? Because I want the 3 to be visible at once, meaning after the 4th element, all the elements will be basically hidden. So to do that, all I need to do is to grab the testimonial card after the 4th child. So I'm gonna use the nth child method and write n plus 4 in it, meaning after the 4th element, and I'm gonna display them as none. Let's check now, fresh. As we see, now we can just see 3 at a time. Okay, add some spaces. Now what we wanna do is to design this card a bit, meaning I'm gonna grab this testimonial card class, add some padding. I'm gonna add about 1.5 rem, meaning about 15 pixels. Okay, need spaces. Whenever I'm saving, there's some auto formatting of this file because of the prettier, as you see here, the prettier extension. I suggest you to download it, even it makes the life easier, but sometimes
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
But let's continue and go to the point. So I want a background. This background is gonna be the Noi light, and if we check it here, it's our kind of gray color. And I really took some time to choose these colors, so the testimonial section will look great. We got the border radius. I'm gonna add 1 rem, which is about 10 pixels, 12 pixels. I'm gonna add some box shadow. This is gonna be complex. That's why I'm just gonna paste it here. As you see, it's noimorphic box shadow, which give us this very modern styling. And even this color here, Noi Light and then Noi Dark, will help us to achieve this noimorphic styling to our website. If you don't know what noimorphic styling is, let me show you what that is. If you write here noimorphic design, you will see it's like this very modern shapes, as you see here, like these shadows, and the colors are giving you like this kind of 3D looking interfaces. Same here, and it's really helped to make the whole thing look better. Max width would be 300 pixels. The text align should be center, so align the text to the center, and I'm gonna add margin 0 and 10 pixels horizontally. Save, fresh. It starts to look much better, man, especially with the shadows. It's pretty good. Now what I want to do is, when hovering, I want to change the styling a bit on hovering. One more time, I'm gonna add some spaces, and all we need to do is to grab this class, and then on hover, what we want to do is want to add a box, another box shadow, which I'm gonna paste here. As you see, it's a bit complex, a bit black, 2 pixels, and then gray on the other side. And what I wanted to do is to show this hover, to transform the whole thing and scale it by 1.05, which is a really very small scale, but it will make the difference. If we check now, refresh, you see it will go a bit bigger, and the shadow is a bit different. As you see, it's changing a bit. And this really gives us an amazing touch on this section. What we still want to do is style the user image. I'm gonna add the width 70 pixels, but also a height of 70 pixels. We are not done. Want to add a border radius 50%. That will give us the circular border. Let's be sure that the whole thing is covered, meaning that we zoom the photo to cover the whole object, the whole circle that we got. But also want to add some margin to the top. Let's check here. As you see, we want some margins on the top here. I'm gonna add one rem, meaning 10 to 12 pixels, and for sure the same box shadow as before, which will give us our noimorphic effect on the image. But also we want to design this username, so I'm gonna grab the username, give it a font size 1.2 rem. Gonna be sure that the color of the font is gonna be the primary color, meaning this dark blue, and we need some margin bottom. I'm gonna add 0.5 rem, about 5 to 6 pixels. Let me refresh here. Ooh, it looks much better, man. Still got some work to do, that's why I'm gonna add some more spaces so you don't confuse code. Wanna be clean. Okay, now we got the testimonial text. Want to have the color of the font should be first the primary color. Okay, that's first. Second, I'm gonna assign the font size to 1 rem, about 10 to 12 pixels. Now let's design even the arrows, because you see they are huge, taking like about 35 to 42% of the width of the screen. That's huge, so wanna for sure style these. That's why I'm grabbing the class arrow. Let's be sure that the max width is gonna be minimum content, meaning it's gonna cover exactly the arrow inside it and not give it that much padding on the left and the right of the arrow. Wanna be sure that the font size is 2 rem. Now the background color is gonna be the primary color. Wanna add some border radius 50 pixels, 50%, meaning it's gonna be round, and inside we got the arrow without so much padding. And to be exact, I'm gonna add padding of 0.5 rem, so about 5 pixels, and for sure add the same noimorphic shadow. Let's save and check what we got till now. You see, it's looking so much better, man. Look, it's so much better. Very nice. Save. Okay, what I would still do is to add another hover on the arrow. I'm gonna just change the color. So I'm gonna grab the class arrow, and on hover, we're going to add background. Let's be sure that we are using the noimorphic dark, meaning, as you see, it's dark. But to be honest, I don't really like it. So let's keep it on the violet color that we got. It really looks good, so why not? Okay, so now we are actually done with the styling. We want to write the JavaScript. So when we click on the buttons here, as you see, we want these testimonial cards to be switched. So this is the 4th one, this is the 5th one, 6th one, and then we got the 7th one. Then we don't have anyone anymore. That's why when I'm clicking, nothing has happened. But now if I click on this one, I'm getting back. So this is the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. Now I can't go left anymore. And this is the logic. This is the functionality using JavaScript. We want to write that. The JavaScript is gonna be added in the JavaScript folder in the public. I'm gonna call it slider to JavaScript, right? And we want to be sure that it's added in the index.js. That's why I'm gonna duplicate this line, and instead of navbar, I'm gonna add slider to JavaScript. Now, just for the sake of testing, let me test. Here we go. Let's open the console. Okay, this is the console. Let's refresh. Here we go from the slider.js. That means it's connected in the right way. Now we could start writing our JavaScript. The first thing that I want to do is to grab the different divs and the different elements that I want to. The first one is gonna be the container. I'm gonna grab the container using the document object for sure, as usual, query selector, and I'm gonna select the element by ID, meaning the hashtag symbol, testimonial cards container. What I'm doing now is I'm grabbing the testimonial cards container, which means this whole thing here, right, without the arrows. Second, I'm gonna grab the cards. Now grabbing the cards, I'm gonna put them directly inside of an array, and this array should be created from, then I'm grabbing the container. So the container of the cards contains the cards. So all I'm gonna do is in the container, I'm gonna use a pure selector all. So I'm gonna choose select all of the divs that got the name testimonial card. Save. Now, last but not least, I want to grab the bottom left, which is the left arrow. So straightforward, I'm gonna use the query selector, use the hashtag arrow / left. I'm gonna do the same for the arrow right and also give it the name of right. Save. Okay, so these are the main elements that we need. Okay, so I want you to think about it. This is the destination. This is the end goal that we want. As you see, when we are moving our testimonial cards, we got always 3 at a time. And then when we click on the arrow, what's happening exactly is, let's say this one, or like this dude here. Let me check, make a line on how big is it. As you see, we are moving the same width of the testimonial card. That's why first we want to keep track of the first visible card, meaning this one here. Let's check it, meaning this one here. And if we are on another place, for example here, so this is the first card. We want to keep track of this one because it could be the first, the second, third, and so on till the last testimonial card. So we want to keep track of that. Why? Because according to this, we are going to decide if we are going to show the next 2 testimonial cards or not. That's why I'm gonna basically use let to create current index variable, and for now we'll give it 0. And this should keep track of the first visible card. Okay, now after that, we want to create a function. This function, I'm gonna call it check buttons. I'm gonna call it move cards, and this is gonna move the cards for us, right? So first we wanna calculate like how much do want to move when clicking on the arrow. That's one. That's why I'm gonna grab the card width. So I'll start by defining a variable called card width. Then we'll grab cards, grab the first card and these cards, then we want to grab the width, right? And then the second thing is the gap. When I use the get computed style and grab the container, meaning this whole container of the testimonials, right? And on that, I want to grab the get property value gap. What we are doing here is basically we are getting the computed style. So what we already have on the Chrome, which is already computed of the container, and in the container we are grabbing the gap, meaning this gap here. Let me check 1 second. Well, let me check for a second. Let me search for gap. Okay, meaning we're grabbing this gap here. You see? Now what we want to do, think about it, we are moving the cards. So what we want to do is in the container we want to add a style. So in the container we grab the style of the container and the transform property, and we want to be sure that the value of transform is gonna be translate x, because we are translating horizontally. Let's use here template literals. This is much better in our case. If you don't know template literals, I've explained that in depth in a video, check it here. And think about it, what we want to do. What we want to do really is to grab the different widths of the cards, right? And add the gap to it and just move the width, like translate x and move it accordingly, right? Meaning if the width is 100 pixels and then the gap is 20, so we got 120 to the left, right? Or to the right, depending on what we are clicking. Meaning the current index times card width plus the gap. Nice. And then for sure pixels. Okay, now we want to still show or hide cards based on their index, right? We'll get to that in a second. Let me check now what is happening. Nothing till now is happening because we didn't add the event listeners yet. So let me add the event listeners on these bottoms, and whenever we click on it, we call this function so we can test it together, because I want to get you through the testing of the logic even. So on the bottom left, when I add an event listener, and it's gonna be a click event listener, what I want to do is implement this function. So when we are clicking on the bottom left, that means the current index is 3. We are going left, that means it's gonna be 2, meaning we are decrementing the current index, right? And after decrementing the current index, we are calling the move cards function. Now the same thing is gonna be on the left. So instead of bottom right, we got bottom left. Now instead of decrementing, we are incrementing. Nice. So now refresh. Let me check the console. Okay, nothing is happening yet. Now I will paste the code and tell you what we are doing here exactly. So as you see, we are grabbing the cards, which is this array, and looping into it. So for every single card, and as you see here, we got 2 parameters, card and index. What we are doing is we are grabbing the style of every single card, specifically said, we're grabbing the display, and what we are doing is we're writing this condition. This here is a condition. So if this condition is true, then we are using the display block. If not, then the display is gonna be none. You see? So let's check this condition. What's really this condition is. So the index should be greater or equal to the current index. That's one. The index is greater or equal to the current index, and the index should be smaller than current index plus 3. Meaning, if our index is 1, meaning in this case, if our index is 1, every single element with the index 1, so this condition is true, and 1 is still smaller than 3, that means 1 and 1, that's true. Both are true, so it will be blocked. If we got the index 2, current index is also 2, so that's true, the first one, and 2 is still less than 3, and so on. So that means we'll show the first element and 2 other elements. That's it. Meaning we will show 3 elements at once in the container. Everything more than these 3 elements will be displayed as none, and everything before the first current index is gonna be also none. Nice. Now last but not least, I'll create one last function which will explain a lot for us, and it's gonna be the check bottoms. Meaning, when are we going to allow these specific arrows to function or not function? I'm gonna write a comment here, enable or disable the buttons, the left and right buttons. So if the bottom left is disabled, so the bottom left disabled is equal to current index equal to 0. Meaning, when we are in the very first case here, having card 1, 2, and 3, we want this arrow here to not function. Now it's still functioning. We want it to not function. It's still a bit mess. We'll get to that. We want this one to not function. That's why we are going to disable it. But want to be sure about something, which is calling the check bottoms here at the end of move cards. Because every single time that we move the cards, we want to refresh the logic of the bottoms, if they are clickable or not clickable, disabled or enabled. And what we still want to do when we load the whole thing, when we load the website, the web app, we have some initial setup. So the initial setup would be check bottoms, meaning we are going to call the check bottoms function before we start anything. And we also want to call the move cards. Let's refresh here too. Let's see now. Now that's the case 0. Let me check to click. I'm clicking, nothing is happening. As you see, I'm clicking on this arrow, nothing is happening. Why nothing is happening? Because the current index of this array here, card width, is what? Is 0, because this is the first one. This is the card 0. Because of the card being 0, give me a second. If you check the check bottoms here, when the current index is 0, the left bottom is disabled. Nice. Now what's the second case? When do we want the other arrow, the right arrow, to be disabled? We want the right arrow to be disabled, in which case when the current index is equal to cards.length minus 3. Meaning, we know that we got 5 cards, right? We got 5 cards. We know that already. Is it 5 or 6? Let me check. Let me check the index. We can also like log it to the console, the length, but I'm gonna check it from here. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 testimonial cards, right? Nice. So now the logic. 5 minus 3 is equal to 2, okay? So meaning 0, 1, 2. Meaning when this 2 card is gonna be on the very left, it's gonna be the last case. We can't click on the right arrow anymore. Let's check if the logic is true. So 1, okay, 1 more, 2. Now we shouldn't be able to click anymore. Nice. And that's the logic we've just written in the slider. Nice. And as you see, the rest is really working in a very nice way. Okay, now this one is enabled, disabled. Nice. Nice and clean. So this is the code, the JavaScript code, working exactly as we want it to work. And yes, actually, let me just refresh so we don't get this error anymore. Let me check it. Nice. I really love the website. We've got the home section. We'll click on sign up. We'll go to the form. We can click on about. We get this text, register. We get to the form. But we are not done yet. There is still something, the responsiveness of the website. Now if we check, okay, that looks really good. We already covered the navbar. That's really nice. Still can do some very basic, small, quick things. So as you see, these titles could be a bit smaller. When we are on about 600, I think, we can get a bit smaller. And these are repeated again and again. So why not designing it? So check the designs. I'm gonna paste it and explain it. So as you see here, what we are doing is we're flexing the direction. The flex direction is column in the form section when we are under 800. It's not a big deal, but it's helpful. That's one. I think it's already covered. Let's just keep it for now. And let's just be sure that the form width is 100%. Nice. And the minimum width is 100%. Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, under 200, it's not that good yet. So what we want to do is let's just add some styling on middle query maximum width 600. So what I'm going to do is decrease the font size a bit and decrease the subtitle and the hero date a little bit in the hero section. Let's check. Yeah, that looks really legit, man. Nice. I like it. Nice. And the navbar is working. Boom. Wow, I love it. Last but not least, I'm gonna add some animations. which is the last point that we got. So in the hamburger span, we've already added it, and we got it in the form. Let's check where's the form. It's already added. So the input is also there. We got the button. Okay, we don't have any transition there. So let's add some transition. The transition would be ease. Nice. Then the testimonial cards container. Nice. Also the testimonial card. So as you see, I'm adding different transitions. Ease in out, but also ease. Also for the arrow. Where's the arrow? Here's the arrow. Let's add some transition. Last but not least, I want to add here the animation style. And it's nothing complex, but I've just chosen a particular classes, for example the hero title, the text box, basically the texts, as you see, even the error messages, and I'm adding the animation fade in down for 2 seconds. Now last but not least, I want to define this fade in down. What is it exactly? Because if we save now and we check, let's check the console, I'm not sure if the error will be there. Okay, we'll check that. Okay, so the error is not really there, but I want to define this animation, and again I'm gonna paste it and explain it, because our goal of this tutorial is not to explain animations, it's something more difficult, but straight to the point. 0 means depending on these seconds that we are giving here, so 2 seconds. So let's say these are the 2 seconds. 0 means here, 100% means here, it means after 2 seconds. That means 50% is 1 second, right? So if these are 2 seconds, 0, 2, so this would be 1 second, meaning 50%, right? Now all we have here, very easy animation. So when it's 0, when the animation didn't start yet, as you see, it's minus 20 pixels on the Y. So vertically speaking, it's somewhere here, and the opacity is 0, meaning this is just something like not very transparent and not very visible. And then after 2 seconds, what will happen is it will be here, and it will be, the opacity will be more, right? This is the fade in down. Fade in up, it's basically the opposite. As you see, we start with 200 pixels, meaning we start here up, and then with time we are here, and the opacity is 1. Here the opacity would be something like that. So we're going down, and that's it basically. We still got the pulse. Give you 1 second to scroll. So the pulse, as you see, we are using the 50%. So let me explain what the 50% really means here. So we got our time frame, 2 seconds, right? So 0 and 2. So the 50% is 1. That means while the whole thing is on the 1, it will have a shape. On the 0, it will have a shape. On 2, it will have another shape. That's like the logic between this 0, 50, and 100. Now let's see exactly what the shape is. As you see, we are scaling here. Pulse is basically scaling, right? So as you see, what is happening is with the pulse is like the pulse of the heart. The scale is 1, meaning it's so big. Let me just draw it one more time. It's so big, right? This is 1, this is 0, and this is 2. So 1 is the 50%. 1 second is the 50%. Assuming that the time frame is 50%. What is happening is, here's how it looks like. This is 1, it will become a bit bigger, and then it will become one more time smaller like that. So these two are equal, which is the scale 1, but this one is a little bit bigger. So times 1.05. I hope you got the point. Now what we still want to do is to add these animations, because we've chosen where to add them. Let me check. But this is the fade in down animation. We didn't use the fade in up, and we didn't use the pulse yet. So let me use these. And the first thing that we want to do is on the hero. Let me check on the hero section, the hero button. Okay, as you see, we've already written that, but it's commented. We are using pulse 2 second infinite. Infinite means here that we are going to endlessly repeat it. This is the pulse. Now let's check what does it really mean here on the screen. Look at this button. Are you seeing? It's the pulse. You see it, right? And that's what we have achieved with this line. Nice, right? I mean, it's really simple. The animation is nothing that difficult. So yeah, I hope this explanation is covering the main things. Yes, and other than that, we got the subtitle and the hero date, as you see here, and I'm gonna uncomment it, and it's gonna be fade in up. So let's check one more time the logic of fade in up and try to predict it on the design. That's the best case. Try to think about it. Let me show you the logic. Take a second, look here. Look on here. I've already explained it for 5 minutes. So look here and predict what's really happening. Nice. Now, what's really happening is, you see the translate and the opacity. So it's getting from 20 to 0, meaning it's getting down. And the other thing which is happening, it's kind of having less opacity, and then it's gonna be more opacity. So it's getting more clear and down. Let's check. So what we are talking about really is, you've seen the fade in up, right? Is it called fade in up? Look at the fade in up. Look what is really happening. It was up, it got down 20 pixels, translation. And the other thing which happened is the opacity has increased. The same is happening here, but in the opposite direction. Yeah, as you see here, in the opposite direction, which is fade in down. This one here. And that's it basically. Now, for the last time, let's check the website. As you see, animated. We got the pulse here, hovers. Man, it's look really good. We got like the error messages. I've already shown you that. And as you see here, when hovering on these testimonials, it looks amazing, bro. It looks really good. And for sure, like, I wanted to show you the power of neumorphic colors and neumorphic designs here. And you can tell, look at it. Look at it. It gives you like this feeling of modern UIs. And with that, I want to end the video. I hope you really benefited. I want you to write a comment and support this video if you watched till now. And feel free to get the code, as I've said, from the description. I would really be glad if you support the channel by a like, comment down your thoughts, and let me know if you would like me to build a specific application that you think it would be beneficial for you and for the audience. And just if you are interested with working with me one-to-one, check the video in the description and maybe you can be one of the students in my private community. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Here is your Jad, and see you in the next video.